Ever since I was 9, sleep paralysis has been a pretty common issue for me. The few times I got it, I freaked out. I remember becoming conscious, trying to move, and upon realizing I couldn't, trying to scream. I remember how my heart would pound when I couldn't, and how my fear would only grow stronger. Thankfully, my fear of sleep paralysis is in the past. I still get it pretty often, but thanks to 22 years of experience, I'm more than annoyed by it than scared. Until now. Behind my house, there were some woods owned by someone nobody really knows. My neighborhood was pretty tight-knit, and everybody knows everybody kind of situation, except for the owner of the woods behind our houses. Rumors often make their way around the neighborhood because kids are going to be kids. Thankfully, most adults realize that rumors were probably just that. Rumors. At least that was until Billy Robinson went missing. Billy was a good kid. I was good friends with his mother, Miss Robinson, and she loved to go on and on about what Billy was up to and how well he was doing in school. The only struggle I ever heard she had with him was his night terrors, but for the most part, they weren't an issue. It wasn't often that I interacted with Billy, but whenever I did, he was always a very sweet kid, and that's why it was so heartbreaking to hear about his disappearance. Around the time he disappeared, Mrs. Robinson started to tell me how Billy's night terrors were becoming more frequent. She took him to all sorts of doctors and specialists. She handled his issue about as well as she could, but Billy was still getting worse. Until he eventually went missing. It wasn't known until the morning that Billy had disappeared. Because of that, the police had a lot of catching up to do. They did everything they could. A search was organized with bloodhounds and lots of searches, one of which being me. At first we were hopeful that he would be found and swiftly returned home. But as time went on, we began to lose hope. Eventually the hounds stopped at a trunk of a tree, as though Billy was right there. But he wasn't. The police tried to get the hounds moving again, but they wouldn't let that spot go. Because the hounds stopped being of any use, they were taken away with the hope that the searchers could find Billy from there. As the hours dragged on, more and more volunteers had to retreat for one reason or another. By the end of the day, most of us had gone back home. Some with the intention of resuming the search in the morning, and others being able to because of work. I was one of those people. For about the first week and a half, I would spend hours of my free time searching for Billy. But as life piled on, I had less and less time to dedicate to looking for him. And eventually, I completely forgot about searching. About a month after Billy's disappearance, his remains were located. Far out in the middle of the woods, they found Billy Robinson. I don't know what the specifics of the state he was in, and quite frankly, I do not wish to. Mrs. Robinson was destroyed. According to her husband, she locked herself in her room for days. When she eventually returned to society, she was never the same. Rumors began to spread. Some people said that Billy likely just wandered off and got mauled to death by animals. Others say that the owner of the land is some psychotic killer that ripped him apart. I never got involved with contributing to such rumors out of respect for Miss Robinson. The only reason I'm talking about this now is because what happened to Billy is now happening to me. About 2 weeks ago, I got sleep paralysis again. Nothing unusual about that. What made this instance noteworthy was that there was a dark figure in my room. This figure had long, thin legs and walked on all fours. From the corner of my room, it whispered something that I could not understand. After that incident, I would get sleep paralysis every night, and every night, the figure would move closer to me. Its words would become more and more audible until about the 5th night of this, I could finally understand what it was saying. Every night, it would come back and repeat that phrase. I assumed that I was starting to hallucinate during my paralysis until one night after the figure spoke, my body got up. I didn't get up. My body just did it all on its own. My body just got out of bed and exited the room just as I have 1,000 times before. As my body walked through the kitchen, it hit a glass which shattered on the ground upon impact and promptly put me back into the control of my body. Over the next few nights, the figure would return, and sometimes my body would get up and attempt to reach the woods. Every time, my body knocked an item or bumped into a piece of furniture that would fully awaken me and put me back into control. But every time, it got a little better at navigating the maze that it seemed to believe was my house. It was trying to find a way to stop my body from getting out on its own until last night. Last night, I almost walked into the woods. My body skillfully navigated my house, unlocked, and to my horror, opened my back door. It wasn't until I got to the edge of the woods that my neighbor, Mr. Gonzalez, shouted to me to say hello. When I regained control, I was so terrified that I didn't even return his greeting. Despite my legs trembling, I was able to turn and run back inside my house and lock the door behind me. I didn't go back to sleep that night. That's why I'm writing this. I need to talk to someone who won't call me crazy. I need the help of someone who is willing to listen. Please, dear reader, I need help. If you know what's happening to me or how I can stop it, I am begging you to reply. If you hear about a 31-year-old man on Conway, Arkansas going missing, it just might be me.